I think it was in elementary school that I learned how President Harry Truman kept a plaque on his desk that read, "The buck stops here." The lesson was obvious. As the man at the top, he was ultimately responsible. Well, this is the story of how that single concept of accountability is helping to change the lives of hundreds of school children in Indianapolis. In some schools, 1 out of every 2 students was dropping out. Morale was plummeting. Recruiting and retaining good teachers was a problem. The answer: they started a charter school system, free public schools designed to meet particular needs of particular students. But for the first time in the United States, the legislature made one person directly accountable for the success or failure of those schools. That one person, the mayor.
It's in the soul of a plan, how it moves every man, every woman to be free, to see the woods through the trees, all the people at their best.
This is Andrew J. Brown Academy. We are a charter school here in Indianapolis. This is our 3rd year open, and I'm a 3rd grade teacher here. We provide an alternative to the parents, and it's free to them. They can come from wherever to our school if they're not happy with the schools that are selected for them in their area.
When our kids first came to us, we only had 19% of our kids at grade 3 passing I-STEP, and we knew we had a lot of work to be done. Many of the students come to us behind academically, and many of them had social problems in their previous schools.
When I first came, it was just crazy behavior. We had a lot of kids who came to our school because they didn't like their schools here, the public schools. So rather than running to us because they saw a great opportunity, they were running away from their other schools.
Being a superintendent of schools here in Decatur, as we began to look around and being very concerned about the students that we were losing, we knew we had to look at something different. For example, we on a consistent basis are having about 480 students leave our 8th grade, but we're only graduating about 280 in our comprehensive high school, Decatur Central High School. So what's happening to those students?
We weren't satisfied with the education that many of our students were receiving for whatever reason.
The whole dilemma with public education over the years has been the accountability is too diffuse. It is impossible to sort of say, well, you're responsible for this, or you are.
And I also thought that there were many students who were simply slipping through the cracks, and we needed to find a different way of teaching them.
If one system doesn't work for your child here, there should be another choice for that child to go to another public school system.
And I thought charter schools offered the best opportunity.
At the time, there were 2 basic models for mayor's involvement in education reform. One was to be a cheerleader, an advocate, a fighter for the school district, and the other was to take over the school district. And I felt that both of those models fell short in my mind.
One of the things that we thought was, well, who is ultimately really responsible to the people in their communities? Well, the mayor is really ultimately responsible. It took us 7 years to pass the charter school bill.
The mayor of Indianapolis, Mayor Bart Peterson, is the only mayor in the country that has authority to charter schools.
And so once a mayor is in that position, there's a powerful incentive to do everything possible to make sure that those schools do perform, that they do succeed.
It's in the smallest of things, how you care for what you do, and follow on through.
3 meters. What else do we know?
So
We need to know.
your mind.
Good.
What's unique in Indianapolis is that the mayor here is the authorizer, the person who decides who gets a charter and oversees and evaluates the schools that are up and operating. And he is directly accountable to the people who are being served by those schools. That has forced us to develop systems that are exceptional across the board.
Indiana Black Expo is a nonprofit organization. This is our 36th year. Our program focus is youth and family programs. Indiana Black Expo received a charter. So we actually have the charter received from the mayor's office that began the Andrew J. Brown School.
We also have a multi-step application process.
There was a huge application package, and he's got to really feel confident that you're going to have a good product.
So after an applicant submits their full application, not only does the staff do evaluations of the applications, but we have an external board of experts, an advisory board, that gives us feedback on the application.
We have a board of volunteers appointed. It's cross-sectional, some from education, some others that are business. We've had attorneys.
And then we hire external people to look at the application, including a firm that looks just at the governance and the finance piece of the application, because that's so critical and has so often been overlooked.
He has a whole team of people that work with you.
One of the things that's been particularly useful to us and is also unique is that our chartering process is on television. We don't make these decisions in some closed room that nobody has access to the information. There are 3 televised hearings on each application before a charter is ever granted. And those programs aren't just run once, those are run repeatedly on our public access channel, so people really understand that this is a merit-based decision. We use that information to give detailed feedback to the applicants. It's really interesting to see how people respond to that. Do they take that information and really go out and solve the problems that we found in their application?
So there are several steps that you go through, and everybody has to be on the same page as far as your capacity to be able to have a successful program.
We get the applications, we go through the screening, through interviews, public hearings, and we recommend to the mayor.
The mayor is accountable, and the quality of the product is ultimately going to reflect on that individual. And that individual goes before the voters every 2 or 4 years.
And the charter has to be approved by the City County Council.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to acknowledge the fact that this was a community development initiative, if you will.
Our process is once David Harris and his staff does a rigorous review and their board approves it and the mayor decides that that's a school that he wants to chart, it comes to the legislative body for ratification.
Up under the leadership of Joanne Taft, got together and thought about this school very hard and worked to collaborate with efforts to create this college preparatory liberal arts high school. So I hope you'll join me in voting for this need in downtown Indianapolis.
I would move the passage of...
Across the country, far too many charters have been granted to people who shouldn't have gotten charters. The role that we play as a charter authorizer, we make sure that only those people who really are going to run top quality schools get charters in the first place. And then once those schools are chartered, to make sure that those schools are effective, are meeting the needs of those students.
Why was Mom going to the florist?
Okay, do you guys know what a florist is?
It's a person who sells flowers.
Okay, that's going to be important for us to know as we read. There's a significant amount of accountability, and that if we don't meet our goals within a set amount of time, our school is done and we'll be shut down. So
we really started to look at test data, looking at where those kids were, looking at what those deficits were, and really start to build our program around the student need.
And it's not like the typical middle school where the students are like all over the building, they just kind of walk freely to class. Here we actually have them line up, we take them to class, they stay in one area pretty much, and so we know each other really well.
Minus a -2. India, what do you have?
it's fine.
Good job.
And also as individual teachers, our children have to make growth, and if a majority of my students don't make growth, there's a good possibility I won't be asked back.
Also, we're accountable as far as our curriculum. Every week we have a meeting, we turn in our lesson plans.
Our test scores on I-STEP, which is what Indiana uses to measure growth, basically, I want to say they've doubled in almost all areas in most grade levels.
And so that's something that is definitely we're held accountable for. So yes.
Getting the mayor's award was just
The Andrew J. Brown, because of Thelma and her work, has been just awesome. They received the Mayor's Excellence Award last year for Most Improved with all their numbers, and so we're just so proud we picked a winner.
On average, we've seen a 25% increase in that pass rate for the kids who have attended the mayor-sponsored charter schools. The statewide average, using the same comparative data, is less than a 1% increase.
It was very, very difficult to get people to think about changing schools. It scared them because they don't want to take a risk with their children.
In a lot of communities, there has been an adversarial relationship between the traditional public schools and charter schools. We're right now in the Decatur Discovery Academy, which is a charter school that the mayor sponsored that was organized by a local school district.
The mayor's charter was very, very intriguing to me because of the flexibility that it allows outside of our traditional school setting. The length of day, the availability of who we can hire for teachers, for principals, we can go out and find the very best. And what you see here is an expansion of our Decatur Discovery Academy to accommodate additional students.
They had the authority to, under the state charter law, to grant a charter to that school themselves.
If you go through the mayor's process, you can be assured that it's going to be a charter school with a great chance for success.
Multiply your 9 sections times your 3 meters in each section. 9 times 3 is?
I had a lot of people tell me before I jumped into this that I was probably making a mistake. I didn't have to get involved in education. It wasn't part of the mayor's job description. Some people thought I just shouldn't, period, that it was wrong for the mayor to be involved. But my feeling was, I don't know how you can be a mayor wanting to make life in your city better and not focus on the educational system.
Read number 5.
The educational system is such a vitally important part of what the quality of life in any city is about. I don't see how a mayor can ignore that.